Let's go ahead and move on to another story. One that's a little more upbeat, unless you are scared of maniacs in your bedroom. So, this is, again, a bizarre story because it kind of falls into an area where what is this phenomenon? Some people may classify it as a ghost. There's been a lot of effort to classify it as an alien. Is it a demon? Who knows? Hopefully, you never have to find out. Tonight, you go to sleep. You're lying in bed, comfortable, in the safety of your own home. But out of your sleep, you sense something in your room. It's so palpable, it wakes you up. And you're laying there in the darkness, and you know there's something there that shouldn't be. You don't have to see it. You don't have to hear it. You just know. And that feeling of dread that is just washing over you freezes you in place. And you feel the foot of your bed become a little heavier. Something has now joined you in your bed. You don't want to look, but you feel compelled to. Whether it's curiosity, whether it's caution, whether it's blind fear of what will happen if you don't look, you roll over and you see it. He's sitting on the edge of your bed, and his face has a grin so wide, it's inhuman. It's a mixture of both fiendish delight and torment, pain. You can't tell. It's both and neither. His eyes are wild. He's staring at you. And he's rubbing his chest with his hands. Just rubbing himself up and down. Just staring at you. Silently, you just hear the sound of the fabric as his hands brush against his chest. And then he's gone. You still have this after image, of course, of this thing that was at the foot of your bed. In your bed with you. You can't get it out of your mind. And if you think Jason's just telling, a spooky story, because he knows a lot of people listen to the podcast at night, that story I just told you was exactly what happened to young women between the year 1976 and 1979 in Glasgow, Scotland. Most specifically, there was an area, it was the Crosshill district in Glasgow. And oddly enough, they could fit it into a time period, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Now, usually in that time period, but not all the time. Because the story I told you was later at night, a woman was in bed with her husband. She woke up. The grinning man was sitting at the foot of her bed. Described what she said, he was wildly rubbing his chest. Which, it's funny because if you wake up and there's something standing at the foot of your bed just staring at you, that's quite terrifying. Or if you wake up and you see a little girl standing in the corner of your room, that's very scary. But if you woke up in the middle of the night and you saw that shadowy figure at the end of your bed, not just standing there silently, but spinning around like a top with his arms stuck out and his tongue just wagging each time revolution, you see his tongue going, oh, oh, that's creepier. We have this thing where there's what we expect to be normal behavior and what's abnormal behavior. And it's funny because that also comes into the paranormal. When I was reading this story, the Grinning Man does such crazy, creepy things that it elevates it to other than just like a girl jump roping with a rope, like a little ghost girl. Not just regular girl jump roping, but like a ghost girl jump roping. If instead of the girl, the ghost girl, you could have them like you're walking down the hallway and you see a ghost girl riding a tricycle. But what if you're walking down the hallway and you saw the ghost girl rolling around on the ground like she was a pig going, that's 10 times creepier. And that's what's so disturbing about this Grinning Man phenomenon. For 3 years, you had multiple women spotting this thing. Here's another example. 2 teenage girls were walking home one day. They see a bald, grinning man. They said he appeared to be in his 50s, and he wore a one-piece leotard. So almost like a dancer's clothes. So you saw his hands, you saw above the neck, and you saw his feet. I don't know if he was wearing shoes. Again, it'd be creepier if he wasn't. And the way he's moving is very herky-jerky. It's like he can't control his body. Each step is some sort of spasm as he's moving towards them. That's, to me, creepier than if he was running full bore at me. Because I know how to deal with something that's running at me. But if someone's like, and they're like making these weird movements, that's way creepier. Those girls start running, they turn around, they look, he's completely gone, and it's just a long shot trail where they're at. And they're like, we know he didn't pass us, and he didn't run the other way because he couldn't run that fast. Where did he go? One time, I thought this was so creepy, a woman came out of her house to get the milk jugs, because it's back in 1976. She goes out to get the milk jugs, she looks up, and she sees the Grinning Man across the street, just jogging in place. I mean, what is up with this guy? Only women saw him. I think they had a total of between 11 and 17 sightings. Only seen by women, and some women were reportedly so disturbed by it, they moved away. It was such a creepy thing to see. What's so bizarre about the Grinning Man is it doesn't really fall into any particular category. It's human, but humans type things can be cryptids, and it is restricted to a certain geographical location, which would make you think of something like a Bigfoot or a Loveland frog or something like that. But then it exhibits these ghostly things where it can vanish right in front of you. Cryptids normally scurry off into the woods. That's why people think they're more animalistic. They're more realistic type things. He can disappear right in front of you. He can enter your home. He can enter your home unannounced where you won't notice him. But when he's at the foot of your bed, he can give you a sense of dread so you do notice him. You're walking down a dark hallway and something's behind you and you don't want to look. It's the Grinning Man. The fact that only women could see him is such a bizarre detail to the whole story. So you have all these... It's just such a weird story because when we think about stuff like Friday the 13th, I know movies aren't documentaries, but when you talk about stuff like Friday the 13th, they take place at Camp Crystal Lake. When you talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, it takes place on Elm Street. So you have all this stuff that is very area specific, and so are cryptids with the Loveland frog, like I was talking about. But to have this neighborhood plagued for 3 years with this creature that only women can see, it seems so sex-based. It seems so perverted. Mixed with that insanity, plus that horrible face. There's very few things people can do that's more unsettling than an unearned grin. If I tell a joke, I expect someone to smile. I demand it almost. But if I'm talking to someone, and as I'm talking to them, they just start getting this huge grin on their face. You're just walking in a room and someone turns to you and they have a huge smile. It's very, very disconcerting. It might be some evolutionary thing about people showing their teeth. It might just be because it's very out of place. If you walk into a room and someone's making a sad face, you're going to go oh man, what's the matter? But if you walk into a room and someone has a wide grin, you're not going to go, what's so funny? You're going to be slowly back out of the room. I would at least, if someone's generally laughing when they think something's funny, I've never seen anyone just sit in a room just smiling wildly. The Grinning Man, it's also referred to as the Gurning Man of Scotland, and there's a Grinning Man in America. We'll cover that on a future episode because that's more of an alien thing. And I don't think there's a connection between the two. I've tried working out connections with those, but there just doesn't seem to be any connection. The experiences of the women, one Grinning Man in America was seen by a man, only one man, and then this one's only by women in this other country. The only thing that they have in common is they're bald and they have grins. Which might sound like a lot in common. We'll cover that on another episode, but I mean, when you lock your doors to your house, when you get into your bed, you assume those things are safe, and you assume, worst case scenario, someone's going to kick down your door, you're going to hear it, you're going to be prepared, or maybe you're asleep and someone jumps on top of you and you have to start wrestling them and things like that. Obviously, worst case scenario is you get a knife through your head while you're sleeping, but you're like, Jason, I'm not going to bed at night. But you know what I mean? There are certain things we can prepare for. You don't prepare to have a silent visitor creature show up at the edge of your bed, but if you do plan that if you woke up and there was a man sitting on the edge of your bed, how you would fight back. But if that man was rubbing his chest and smiling at you, it's just such a bizarre scenario. Jogging in place, just moving in a creepy fashion, those would all kind of set you off. that would activate your flight response. How would you fight someone who was jogging in place? Like, you would yell at them, tell them to stop, and they would keep doing it. And I'm going to bust you a good one, mate. I'm going to bust you a good one. Like, how? And then you get there and he's just looking at you jogging in place. I feel like you'd almost be too afraid to hit him. This guy's obviously insane. But what happens when you mix the insanity with magic? You get something that really can't be stopped, that can get you anywhere it wants to. But to me, the weirdest part of this story is, why did it stop? Did it get what it wanted, and it wanted to scare 17 women? It wanted to be a lasting impression in their brain? Did it move on to somewhere else? I think that's what happened. I think it's become more discreet. Instead of popping up 17 times over the course of about 3 years in one neighborhood, take your show on the road. You can only rob so many banks in a city before they get wise to you. You can only pass so many counterfeit bills before they know what to look for. Maybe Scotland was just a little training ground for it, before it went worldwide. Because if someone saw this now, in the middle of Idaho, they would think it was a one-off thing that only they experienced. Some creepy apparition, ghost, demon thing that they saw. As it stood in the bushes, with this tongue sticking out, and then blinks out of existence. There'd be no one hunting for it if no one knew it existed. I think that seeing it at the end of your bed, rubbing its chest, which is just such a bizarre image, is creepy. But what would almost be even more creepy than that, if it was doing that, but was invisible. The Grinning Man may still be in Scotland. It may have taken its show on the road, but it may have become more discreet. So now when you're walking down the hallway, and you get that kind of chill up the back of your neck, you don't want to look, you don't turn around, but you feel compelled to. And you turn around, hallway's empty, it's just you. Just outside of our field of vision, invisible to the human eye, may be a tall, bald man, rubbing his chest right behind you, grinning wildly at all the fun he's having. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.